How you going, people? Let's talk about kidnapping. Let me turn this down. Yeah, I'll just turn it off. Let's talk about mind this damn screen. I think my head's in it. All right. So, I saw some clip they were doing when I was channel surfing something, and this Elizabeth Smart kidnapping came up. And I kind of remember this being a big deal back when I was a cop. So if you don't know the story, I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about some of the freaking failures of government trying to protect this kid and catch her. And I mean, some of the stuff that was done is freaking crazy. So I made some notes, and I got Wikipedia open here. So if you want to go read it on Wikipedia, you can do that. And I don't want this video to be about victim blaming. A lot of people be like, oh, you're blaming the victim. And I'm not victim blaming. I'm trying to get people to understand the importance of self-sufficiency, teaching your children to protect themselves, understanding that evil is out there, and it may or may not find you, but when it finds you, you ought to be prepared or at least have a plan on how to deal with it. Now, this kid was abducted when she was 14 when she was 14. So let's think about a 14-year-old kid. And I'll give you some history about it. But just from how many 14-year-old kids, if they were abducted and the police came up to them, they would be too scared to tell the cop that they were abducted. To me, that seems a little odd. I've got to don't jump to conclusions. People that know this are already typing. Rick, you don't know. You're just let me get to it, because I want to get you in the mindset of a cop when we're investigating. And I worked child abduction for years, so I'm telling you that the things that happen to children when they're caught in the middle of either a custody battle or one parent's abducting them and taking them out of the country and hiding them from the other parent, or a stranger abduction, snatched off the street. I mean, it just does some really weird things to children. Now, is a 14-year-old girl a child? We're always told that women mature quicker than men. So a 14-year-old girl should be more mature than a 14-year-old boy, correct? I don't know. I'm just telling you what everyone else tells you. I'm not saying it's fact. So let's get to Elizabeth Smart abduction. 14 years old, asleep in her house. Her sister is also in a room, and I don't know how old her sister is. Maybe the same age or a year or two younger. This is in Salt Lake City, Utah. Mormon family. I'm thinking of Mormon. I don't know. It never said that, but they have 6 or 7 kids, and they're in Utah. So the odds of them being Mormon, Rick, that's stereotypical of you. All right, whatever. I'm just using my freaking common sense brain here. So she's in her bedroom sleeping at night. A guy comes in her room with a freaking knife and says, come with me. If you say anything, I'll kill you. I'll kill your family. Threatens her, etc. Her sister wakes up and hears this and is so scared she plays like she's asleep, which happens to break the case wide open. Now, if and buts and coconuts, if her sister had screamed, and if she had screamed and her parents would have got up, would her family have been killed? Would both kids have been killed? Would they have caught the robber and it would have been a happy ending? Remember, every time I tell you when somebody does something, the outcome always dictates whether it was a great, brilliant move or whether it was a stupid move. And you don't know that till the outcome. So second guessing, Monday morning quarterbacking, whatever you want to call it. So her sister hears this and plays like she's asleep, and they leave. And evidently the sister, after they leave the room, gets up and tries to go tell mom and dad, but when she goes out the room, she's almost seen by the guy with the knife and her sister, because they're in front of mom's room. So she gets scared and she climbs back into bed. And they don't know how long she stayed in bed. They're thinking it's about 2 hours. And then she finally, at 2 hours later, at 4 a.m., goes and tells her mom she thinks she had a bad dream. She tells them what happened. Her parents are like, oh, it's just a dream. They didn't believe her. They go back, put her in a room. The kid's gone, and they look at the screen, and the screen is cut. Now they believe her. Rick, they should have believed her if they were good parents. I'm not trying to crack on the parents or the child here. I'm trying to get you in a mindset of how an investigation goes, and when cops come to these things and we're trying to figure out who the bad guy, guy, who the good guy, who do we look for, who the suspects are, sometimes it's very difficult. So, she's gone, and they don't know who it is. So the investigation goes on, I want to say for a long time, many days. I want to say maybe, she was abducted a total of 9 months before they found her. But 6 months before they found her, the cops contacted them and freaking did a shit job, a detective. But I'll get to that. So, in the investigation, they're like, in most abductions, you always go, look, somebody knows this family, this child, they know the house layout, this isn't a random act. You don't have kidnappers walking down the street going, shit, that looks like a good house, let me go see if maybe, by luck, there's a kid in there I want to abduct. That just doesn't happen, that's not normal. So immediately, when you're doing an investigation like this, you're always looking for signs and keys, who's been there, what kind of work you've had done on the house, who's visited the house, you got uncles, you got weirdo uncles, family law, in-laws, you know, who's around, who's neighbor, who her friends are, if she hung out with her friend's stepdad, does she have a boyfriend? All these things are where cops are initially looking. And if it's, you know, when somebody has 6 kids and they're in a nice home and there's no family problems, the parents are kind of knocked out as suspects pretty quick. If there's problems, if there's a divorce, if there's only one child, if there was financial issues, maybe it could have said, if they had a policy on the child and they're going to, you know, then we're like, yeah, this kind of linked to the parents. So, in this investigation, they have a guy who was either arrested for breaking into their house or other petty things. And I can't think of the guy's name, it's in the Wikipedia thing if you want to look it up, and they get focused on this guy. And this happens a lot in investigations. I tell him one of my, and I might make this a crazy cop story, because this is a crazy cop story, even though I wasn't involved in this case. It's a crazy cop story. So, and I tell you about that case where these 2 investigators that work for the DA's office with me, they freaking knew this guy killed this person, and they hounded him for 2 or 3 years, arrested him, towed his car, had his car crushed because of it. I mean, they just harassed the shit out of this guy because they knew he was guilty and they couldn't get a conviction. And I want to think maybe they end up getting a conviction and the guy went to jail, and then they found DNA evidence that he was secured, he was released, or they found the DNA evidence after harassing him for 2 years and they had to discontinue him as a suspect because of the DNA evidence. And even after the DNA evidence came, the 2 investigators and the DA were still out there saying, we had the right guy. We know he did it. We don't care what the DNA says. So you get prosecutors and cops, and when you're working these cases, you get focused. And it's really hard to back away and go, look, is there any other suspects? Am I focusing too much on this guy and I'm missing the real guy? Because, I mean, no good cop wants to put the wrong guy in prison just to solve a case. Nobody worth their salt's going to do that. I mean, I want the bad guy. I want the real guy. I don't want the case solved when the real freaking crook's still running around out there committing crimes. So, nobody wants to do that, but it happens quite a bit. And you get this tunnel vision as law enforcement, and I don't know if y'all can see if that's, is that better? Shit, that looks too bright. I should have turned on the top lights. Let me turn on the top lights. Rick, you need to stay focused. Shut up, you big crybabies. I'm trying to make a damn video. Doing 100 damn things at once and everybody's crying. I had somebody the other day. If I do it outside, I got 1,500 comments. The wind's blowing, we can't hear you. I do it in here and now I'm getting comments. Don't videotape in the garage. It echoes and I can't listen to it. It's hard to hear. Fuck, you can't play. I'm telling you, man, having a YouTube, I'm going to digress here. Having a YouTube channel is like changing a freaking tire on a highway and having every car that passes you come by, stop and honk, go, hey, your tire's flat. Hey, you know you got a flat tire? Hey, good job changing it. That's what it's like having a freaking, when you comment on somebody's channel, think for a second on how irritating it. See, most channel people that do, they don't read your comments. They either disable comments or they don't read them. And I know why now, because it's very frustrating. But I digress. Let me get back to this. So in this case, they focus on this dude, and I mean, and I remember when you're cops, I don't know if they still do this. We used to get like little cases and clips and interviews, and each month we had to have ongoing training. So at briefing, we would get a 15-minute video that we were required to, by post in California, is Peace Officer Standard Training, that's post. I think Texas is Leosa, I don't know what. Every agency has their own law enforcement training, whatever. It's an accreditation that all cops can get credits, and that's how they get their training. So in California's Post, and Post would put out these little 7-minute training videos or 15-minute training videos at briefing, and every cop would have to do it, and every time we watched it, we had to sign it because it would go on our training records that we had ongoing training, and then, you know, it adds to our, you know, if we're writing a search warrant later. How many hours of training have you had? Well, you add up 15 minutes for briefing once a month for the last 20 years, and, you know, and that's how you build your resume. Whatever. So anyway, I don't even know how the hell I got all this accreditation. But these cops got focused on this one dude, and man, oh, I know how I got on it. During this investigation, they sent out some mistakes or some training from this case. And I remember watching a clip, and maybe it was some guy that just had it and he knew somebody, and maybe it wasn't through Post, but I remember seeing part of the interview and they were dogging this dude. I mean, there was 2 cops in there, they had him in an interview room, the guy was handcuffed, and I mean, they were just like, you know you did it, where is she? We want the body. Because normally when an abduction goes on, most people in abductions do not take the child and keep them. They take the child, they abuse them, sexually assault them, and then kill them and destroy the body and try to hide. So that's normally how a lot of stranger abductions end up. I mean, if you don't catch a guy pretty quick, you've got to assume the person's dead. So they kind of assumed that Elizabeth Smart was dead. I mean, they don't want to say that, they won't admit that, but they did. So in this case where they're interviewing this dude, they thought he killed her. Man, they were just grilling him. He was getting upset, and I remember him saying, man, this is bullshit. I didn't do it. I'm a thief. I steal shit, but I don't freaking kidnap little girls. Because, I mean, even crooks don't like that stigma of being a child molester or a child, you know, predator. So they stayed on this dude, and they end up, I think, either arresting him or violating parole. Somehow he ends up in jail, not connected to this case. And he ends up having a heart attack, aneurysm, stroke, something. He goes to the hospital and he dies. Now, a lot of people will be like, good. And if he did it, I'd probably be okay with that. The problem was they never tied him, got a confession, or knew he did it. They only suspected him because of superficial stuff, that he was at the house, or he stole, or because he had been to the house, and because he had committed crimes of burglary, and because his description vaguely matched the description of the daughter that was asleep at night having nightmares, didn't want to look plain asleep. Because the description matched, they were like, that's our man. And so when he died, a lot of the cops went, shit, case closed. Well, the parents didn't want the case closed. And there were some cops that didn't think he did it. Like always. There's always, you know, any investigation you're doing, there's always, it used to drive me nuts, man. I'd have a table like this with pictures and files and search warrants, and I'd be going through and I'd be checking shit and cross-referencing, and some freaking cop who ain't working the case, don't know shit about it, walk in. Yo, Rick, what are you doing, man? It's like, oh man, I got this freaking monster of a case, I'm trying to figure it out. They read one piece of it and go, dude, man, you should do this. And you're just like, dude, shut the fuck up. I did that shit 5 minutes after this business. But anyway, that's just how cops work. You know, cops want to be helpful. They want to come in there and solve the case and, you know, think they can figure it out. But when you're working a case and you get so inundated in it at night, and I mean, you know, when we had child abduction cases, my numbers would go into a database, and there's a lot of these civilian volunteer child abduction databases that they get this information on child abduction. They get the investigator's number, and my phone would ring all hours of the night, every 2 hours. Hey, we got this and this date, we kind of think it matches, and what do you, and oh, a family member or a cousin called, and you would get all, and then when one person got a tip, it wasn't a while till you got 4 different phone calls from 4 different places that got the same tip later because they heard, and they all talk, and they all cross-reference. So it was almost just freaking oversaturation of shit. But, so that's how cops kind of get messed up. And again, when I'm working this case, sometimes I may get so focused on some shit, and it may take an outside eye to come in and go, dude, did you look at that or this? Because they don't have the prejudices and they don't have the preconceived ideas because they haven't been invested and woken up and, you know, working for hours at a time, etc. And that's what these cops did. They were like, this dude did it. He fits the profile. He was in the house. He matches the description. He's a freaking criminal. Just because he didn't admit it, he killed her. We'll never find a body. It's over. They were wrong. Okay, so, I mean, government stake one. And how they don't contact the real suspect in this investigation is beyond me. But they didn't. So, this dude that abducts her is some religious street preacher weirdo praising Christ. God speaks through me. I'm going to save everybody, etc. And after he abducts her and kind of warps her into his little slave, makes her cover her face, you know, wears all the hijab, whatever they call the wrap, and he's Jesus. He's got a gown, and him and his wife helps him. This weirdo has a wife who helps him and helps hide this girl and convict him while he's raping her and abusing her. The wife is all in on it. And the wife ends up getting 15 years. The guy gets life because they catch the guy. I just blew the story in case you were hanging on for him. Rick, you should have told us. I wanted to wait till the end of the story. Don't ruin the book. Whatever. So anyway, his wife and the abducted girl is in a public place in Salt Lake City. A homicide detective contacts them. Thinks it's suspicious because this guy is preaching and hollering God, causing a disturbance. He contacts this dude. No ID. Gives him his name as a manual. Doesn't run him. Doesn't make sure his ID. Doesn't run the wife. Doesn't run the girl. Doesn't make the women uncover their face. The Jesus freak is telling them, I'm the prophet, I'm the God, this is my daughter, nobody can see her face but me and her husband when she's married. He's coming up with all this shit, and the homicide detective says, okay, and leaves. Now, I know a lot of people, and I'm the same way. Why didn't the girl that's abducted say, officer, I'm Elizabeth Smart, I've been abducted, I need help? Why didn't she say that? Well, through this brainwashing process, and it happens whether it's a stranger abduction or a parental abduction, the parent brainwashes. This one case I was working, this guy was a doctor. I remember telling one of my crazy cops, he made a complaint because I wouldn't call him doctor because he was an arrogant piece of shit. And I used to call him Mr. So-and-so, and it just pissed him off. He filed a complaint. Anyway, he was brainwashing his daughter. When he would get his daughter for the weekend, he would lock her in a room and have somebody come there and brainwash and talk to her and try to tell her how evil and how bad it is she is with her mom. And I mean, he was just a freaking freakazoid. And I was trying to get the kid away from her. I ended up getting the kid away from her, and he didn't get it. But it was a pain in the ass because, of course, like his father, he has as much rights as her, and they've been to court, and they got to go back to court, and you can't really. I mean, it was a pain in the ass. This girl ended up writing me a great letter. It was on the internet for a while. I think her name was Fahima. It sounded like that. Great little girl. She wrote me and said, "You saved my life. Thanks for your help." Blah blah blah. Really one of my rewarding cases that I look back on. So anyway, this girl is got cops right there trying to ID her, and she doesn't say. Why? Because this brainwashing I'm talking about, he had been telling her when he was raping her, when he was locking her up outside in the jungle, when he was telling, if you ever say anything to police, I got in your house once, I'll get back there. I'll go kill your sister, I'll kill your family, I'll kill your parents. I'll kill them all. And in her mind, her 14-year-old mind, he's already taken me, he got my house, he must be able to do this. He's contacted the police, and the police don't do anything when he talks to him. Maybe he has some control, maybe he is, maybe if I tell him I'm work. So they create this conflict, and that's why she didn't identify herself. Now, to me, I think it's hard for me to believe that she shouldn't have went, help, these guys abducted me, I need to get out of here. Even after they caught her 9 months later, and they separated her, and this goes back to the Stockholm Syndrome, they separated her from her abductor in a car, and they had the wife and the predator in another car. She was still denying her name was a little smart because she was scared of what he did. This is after they're separated 9 months later. And when I talk about the Stockholm Syndrome, most cops understand that. And I might screw up the story because it's been years. There was a bank in Stockholm that was being robbed, and the robbers took care of the people, made them bring them pizza. A couple little women, it's always women usually who get Stockholm Syndrome, by the way. Rick, you can't say that. That's sexist. Women are great and perfect and smart and better than men. Okay, but traditionally, the Stockholm Syndrome affects women more than it does men. So these women in the banks end up falling in love with their captors. And they actually want to protect them, and they want to help them get away, and they think that they're responsible for their safety. And I mean, I could get into liberalism and how the liberals prey on women's fears by telling them they'll keep them safe by taking the guns from all the mean people that will hurt them. And if you depend on government, but I won't go there. I just did, I know. Rick, you just, all right, whatever. So, she doesn't say anything. This was a really interesting case to me. Some of you guys might already tune off. You talk too much. You don't stay on. Shut up, you freaking crybabies. All right. So, after this detective contacts them, it makes the abductor nervous, so he moves to San Diego, I think. They go through Las Vegas. I don't know if they stay in Las Vegas, but they end up in San Diego. So failure again on the cops for one, focusing on the wrong guy. When the guy died, they stopped the case. A detective of homicides that detects and has the kid in custody in front and doesn't make her uncover her face, doesn't ID her, knows the guy's acting weird, doesn't get good ID from him, doesn't fingerprint him, don't get what kind of car, doesn't do any investigation, talks to him. He lets the Jesus freak, I don't know, maybe appeal to his religious side, you know, because a lot of God-fearing folks, which I'll get to in this family, a lot of God-fearing folks think if you believe in God, then you're good. And a lot of God-fearing people think if you don't believe in God, you're bad, you're evil, you're not saved. I can't listen to you, you have no credit. I don't know how many people come here. Rick, you need to find God. I'm leaving your channel. Whatever. So, religious people tend to, and most people in any group, tend to be gravitated or pulled to people of like them. I like patriots. I like people that are anti-government. I like people that enjoy freedom. I like people that own guns. Those are my things. I'm drawn to those types of people. Sorry. I mean, that's just the way life is. So this detective lets this Jesus guy start preaching the world, and he's talking to God and all this crap, and he doesn't make those women uncover their faces and doesn't ID anybody. So they get away. Perfect. Now, when I talk about, oh, I'll get to that in a minute. So, they moved to San Diego. While in San Diego, he leaves the women out in the desert where he was keeping them with no water, no food, no nothing, because they're completely dependent on him unless he does it. And he drank a lot, and he'd always tell them God told him that we should drink and party and have sex and celebrate Jesus. And then he would drink and he would leave and he would go on the street and say, God loves you, please give me money, kind of like most churches, but I digress. So anyway, he does all this, and this is how he's making his living. He leaves them out there. While he's out there, he commits a crime, he shoplifts, he gets arrested. They fingerprint him, he's in jail. They let him go. Rick, that government's to protect us. How could they do that? Because it's California, and every liberal state loves to let criminals go because it's their right, and they have to protect them, and they're probably going to vote liberal, and we need to keep our voters out of jail. But, so this case goes on. So, finally, after, I want to say, 3 months later in the investigation, the little girl, her little sister who was in a bedroom, who probably blames herself to this day, that if she had told her parents, if she had done something, it's her fault. But I'm sure she blames herself every day. And, you know, I was always big with children. Look, no child is responsible for any adult problems. Kids, it's not your fault. You don't cause it. You're not the cause of it. Adult problems are adult problems. They cause it. They can fix it. They can make it worse. It's not on you. But kids, no matter how you do it, they always have a way to internalize. If mom and dad's fighting, it's my fault. If something doesn't happen, if we're running out of money, it's my fault. I should get a job. I mean, the kids just do that. It's just the way it is. I mean, you can say you shouldn't do it, but it's just the way it is. So her little sister was going through this 3 months of torture about blaming herself. And then one day, she goes up and she goes, Dad, I think I recognize the voice. I know who it was. And they're like, what the? 3 months later and now you recognize? She says it was Emmanuel. And they're like, holy shit, Emmanuel? So who is Emmanuel and how is he connected to this family? And this is why I don't know the cops didn't identify him immediately. And evidently, the government is saying, we never really focused on Emmanuel because his distance to the contact to the family was so far away. Dude, when you're doing an investigation, you freaking contact everybody that's ever been to that freaking house. Somebody knows the layout and he cut that screen and he didn't find that screen and that kid by accident. So, Emmanuel was a guy in Salt Lake who was homeless on the streets preaching the Word of God, helping save people and show them the way to eternal life, whatever. And because these people were religious, the kids connected with him. The kids went to mom and said, hey, he wants $1. Can we help him? Mom gives him $5. He says, oh, thank you. God will bless you. We'll all go to heaven and be great in heaven. And the next thing you know, they invite this guy to their house to cut down a freaking tree. So because they were being nice, Rick, are you saying no? Shut up. Don't jump to conclusions. Because they were being nice, because they brought strangers into their house, because they were being, in my opinion, naive, they bring a homeless guy, but he's preaching the Word of God, Rick, so he must be good. Okay, I know Catholics good, the Pope's good, everybody's good if they got a robe, and yeah, I get it. Okay, so he's good. So they bring him to their freaking house to help him out, doing the right thing, and now he knows the house. And he's only there for a day or two and he leaves. And then the kid gets abducted by him and is raped and kept for 9 months till they catch him. Sometimes when I hear things like that, I'm just like, are you freaking kidding me? Rick, you're too cynical. People need to help and hug, and we should love each other. And if nobody had guns and we just hugged and kissed, the world would be a perfect place. Well, that's because you're an idiot. Because that's just not reality. That sounds good, but it's not reality. So eventually, they're walking when they go to, they're going back to, this is after he left this girl thought she was going to die because he left the wife and a woman in the jungle or in the desert in San Diego somewhere to where there was no food, no water. They were starving. He left for 2 days, come back from a drunken Bren, brought them some food. They were all happy. And he said, we got to move because he just got arrested and fingerprinted. So he knew he needed to move. So he's smart enough to do all this, but the courts find him incompetent to stand trial. But I'll get to that. So he ends up moving and they start going back to Utah. And when they get to a little city called Sandy, Utah, a woman's driving down the street. And because they were traveling, instead of having the hee-bob and the covered face and the wrap and all that, they decided to wear sunglasses and wigs. So they dressed, you could tell they were in costume. They were really stupid. But they're walking down the street, they get off a bus, they're walking down the street, and a woman and a man drives by, and the woman goes, shit, I'm caught. Wait, I forgot a great part about another government failure. So after this guy kills himself or dies in jail that they thought they had their man, when the daughter comes up and says, I know who this guy is, I recognize the voice, they go, they kind of poo-poo that to the side, and they don't want to release it to the media. They said, we'll try to find him, but we don't want to release it. They withheld that information for freaking a month before finally America's Most Wanted did a thing on it and put it out. So they held on that they were looking for Emmanuel for a freaking month while this 14-year-old was getting molested and raped and dragged across the country and manipulated and brainwashed because they didn't want to put it out. Because it would have hurt the investigation. Sometimes, and this was their excuse, if you put out information too early, you get a lot of false leads and it makes us too busy, and sometimes it hurts us because the guy will know we're looking for him and he'll hide more. So we'd rather keep that information because we're government, we're smart, we're here to protect you. We're going to keep that information for 30 days while a kid's getting raped. It's just freaking outrageous. So at the end of 30 days, finally that Walsh dude that does America's Most Wanted does a video on this, and the freaking reports come in. The ex-wife of this guy, Emmanuel, calls, says, hey, this guy's a freaking weirdo. He freaking raped my daughter. I had to get rid of him. He's crazy. He hooked up with this crazy woman named, I think it was Bizarre. I call her Bizarre, but it was Bizarre, Biziz, or something. It sounded like Bizarre. So he hooks up with his new ex-wife, Bizarre, and they're freaking crazy, and he's capable of this. Well, they weren't really focused on him before because they couldn't figure out who he is, but now the family's calling in saying this dude's a weirdo. And because they released it, that's when all the leads came in. That's when the case kind of got ramped up again. They started putting up pictures. They started figuring out where he went. People were looking for him. They had pictures of him now. they could run criminal, and then they find out he was arrested in San Diego and let loose. Perfect. Johnny on the spot government, there to protect and serve you. Man, everybody had their chalk. They were ready to draw a freaking chalk line around this girl. So, they're moving back from San Diego. They're going to Utah. Sandy police, I think Sandy, Utah is where it was at, is where they stopped her. And they're walking down the street and they look weird because they got wigs on. And this freaking woman who saw America's Most Wanted goes, shit, that's the daughter, that's the two women, and that's the guy. Call America's Most Wanted. This is funny. Her husband's like, no, honey, we need to stay out of this. Let's just stay out of it. We don't. And she's like, if you don't pull a car over, we don't call freaking America's Most Wanted. You're freaking out of the house or whatever. So she stood her ground and she called, and it was them. And the cops swooped down and they got her. And they talked to her for like 45 minutes. And she never said a word. She lied. She gave a fake name. She never admitted her real name. She never admitted she was abducted. Now, all this was going to hurt the case when you go to prosecution because the defense attorney is going to say, she wanted it. She liked it. She ran away. He didn't take her. And when the cops contacted her, when the detective contacted her, she didn't say, I need help. She was perfectly fine, being quiet. And then when they caught her, she was perfectly 45 minutes. She never told them her name. She was trying to... So that was really going to hurt the prosecution case, but that's a whole different story. So anyway, the cops are like, man, they kind of look like the people, even in disguise and stuff. So finally they get a flyer, they put it, and they go, you know what? All three of them gave fake names. These cops did the right thing. The names they gave didn't come back in the system. And like all good cops, if you give a name and you're not in the system, you're going to get fingerprinted. Rick, that's tyranny. You shouldn't have to. Look, I'm just telling you how it works. You can get mad at the messenger. As a cop, if I'm contacting you for a crime, possibly abduction of a kid, and you're giving me a fake name, you're going to freaking jail and you're getting fingerprinted. And I ain't letting you go until I find out who you are. Or he identified himself and he complied with the law. Identifying yourself with no record leads a reasonable cop to assume that you're lying. Remember, they don't have a car, they don't have any ID, they're given a name that's not in the system, their stories aren't matching when you separate it. So there's all kind of factors. But I know there'll be a couple people here that call me a boot jackhammer, whatever. So finally, after 45 minutes, she admits it, and they get her. I mean, to me, this was just a colossal government failure from the jump street. This kid had a horrible 9 months. She got back with her family. It took 8 years before this went to trial. This kid had to relive, have contact, get subpoenas, have the government call, hey, you're our star witness, we just want to brief you. Okay, we're going to court tomorrow. Oh, you know what? Defense filed an extension, it's going to be another year. Sorry, go back to your life, we'll get back to you in a year when we need you. Okay, going to trial, here we go. You ready? You got to come in, we got to brief you. Okay, you need to come to court, we got all the witnesses lined up, we subpoenaed all the witnesses, we got all the cops. Okay, we're ready to go to court. Oh, another extension. 8 years of this. That's why I hate the system, because they re-victimize victims over and over and over again. There's no such thing as a speedy trial for the victim. Only the suspect has a speedy trial. But that's a court issue. Anyway, 8 years later, she goes to trial. She does a great witness. Probably the 8 years gave her a lot of time to grow, to understand, to distance herself from the abuse and the control. And I mean, she's got some foundation now. She's married. She's got a couple kids. It turned out pretty well. It doesn't seem like it affected her a lot. She got back to her family. Everybody was happy. Great story. My point was, if you have a child, 14 years old, they need to know how to fight, say no, run, make a conscious decision on how. Rick, you're victim blaming. Well, I'm not saying she did anything wrong. I'm just saying that people, in my opinion, it's my opinion, people, can I have that? No, Rick, you can't. You upset too many people. Well, then hit the off button and don't listen. My opinion, when you raise a child to be this sheltered, loving, everybody's good, don't worry about evil, you give them this false sense of security, kind of like government does to the people. Just give us your guns. We'll protect you. You don't need guns. We're here to help you. We're the government. When you give an idiot a false sense of security, they're going to act like an idiot when they should be thinking. I'm not calling this girl an idiot. Rick, you just called her an idiot. No, I didn't, you freaking crybabies. I'm just telling you, at 14 years old, shit, man, I was shooting a gun at freaking 11 or 12. I mean, you abduct me at 14? Shit, I'd have ran you over with a car. I'd have asked for a peanut butter sandwich and stabbed you out of shot. I mean, look, at 14, and maybe it's because the guy in the way I was brought up, raised, whatever. Maybe it's just Texas and the difference between Texas and Utah. Now, I went to Utah for training. We went up there to buy some dogs when I was in the military, and we were buying dogs for the military. And we'd go out there and you'd evaluate them, and you'd pay civilians, and we'd buy dogs. And I fell in love with that place. Provo, Utah was a freaking beautiful place. I wanted to move there when I retired. I was like, man, that is a great place. Clean, nice people, and everybody was like, dude, everybody's Mormon, don't go there. If you're not a Mormon, you can't do business, you can't do this, they're really bad. My partner from Vallejo just moved there, and I just, you know, we talked about that, and I got a couple other crazy cop stories because we were talking, and I was like, dude, do you remember this? He goes, nah. He goes, you remember this? I go, shit, I forgot about that, but yeah. So we were bringing up shit that both of us kind of forgot and just kind of reliving old times a little bit bullshitting. But he's got a couple of horses up in Utah, and he's in Utah now. So, as a matter of fact, I got a picture of him on my website. Me and him are both by a horse on thinklikecop.org. But I digress. So, anyway, look, I think you need to raise kids not to be victims. And I think raising a kid, protecting them from evil, telling them evil doesn't exist, telling them that they can go to church and pray and they'll be safe, and if they turn everything over to God, God will protect them. And if you do all these things and just hug and love because liberals just, you know, wear a tie-dye shirt and sing Kumbaya, everything will be wonderful in the world. To me, that sets someone up to fail if they're ever a victim. And in the day of age today, the odds of you becoming a victim is high. Not only a victim from criminals, but a victim from government. Hell, you probably got more of a chance of being a victim of government than from a criminal. And that says a lot. But nobody will want to agree with that because government's here to help. If we just give them our guns and let them protect us, we can be safe and feel comfy and warm in our little bed. Alright, so good case. If you want to go look it up, I want to make sure I covered everything because I made some notes. Let's see, sister, heard the guy, yep, got that. They accused the wrong guy in jail, he died. She was contacted. Suspect said he'd kill her. 4 months later, the sister says, I know who did it. I think I covered everything off the top of my head. That's pretty good, because I had a long list. Lady calls, family admits her name, took 8 years to go to court, guilty in life. He got life, and the wife got 15 years, and she's out. I think she got out, I think according to Wikipedia when I read it, 72. So if you want to go to Elizabeth Smart, abduction, really strange case, so easy to sit back and blame the cops, blame government, blame the suspect, blame the suspect's family, blame the child, blame the sister, blame the parents, blame the media. But, I mean, look, there's plenty of blame to go around. This video isn't about blaming, except maybe the government failure. But it's more to educate evil exists. And you need to talk to your kids that if evil comes and visits them, how do they respond? This freaking liberal crap that they're telling kids in school, if there's an active shooter, get under your desk. They used to tell me as a kid, if a nuclear bomb comes, get on your desk for your knees. They would actually, and some of you kids don't remember this, when we were in the middle of the war with Russia, and Russia was going to bomb us, we were going to bomb them, everybody was going to die, the Cuban Missile Crisis, everything's. When we were in that thing, kids, the public schools, the government-run schools, would actually have alarms. And when the bell went off, all the kids would have to get under their desk, hug their knees, and cover their head so the nuclear bomb could blow by, and that would protect us. Are you freaking kidding me? I mean, I look back and I'm like, shit, I was a kid, but I was a freaking idiot. If a nuclear bomb hit, I'm screwed. Being under my desk ain't going to do a damn thing. But it gave us a sense of control. And it was teaching the children that government would save them. And look, government is telling us what to do, and they're protecting us. And for years, kids would go to school and learn how to hide under their desk from a nuclear bomb. And now they're learning, if a shooter comes in, hide in a room. Get in the closet. Just hide. Don't fight back. Don't jump out a window and try to run. Just hide. That'll protect you. Because government, their big fix to everything is just to hide and wait for government. We'll protect you. We'll come. We'll save you. Just trust in government. Well, government failed totally here. I thought it was a great story. I don't know how long I went. And you know what? I got to wash the car today. I'm washing the Harley. And where's Moki at? He was up here a few seconds ago. Where you at, boy? Where's that crazy cat? He's not in his normal hiding place. Normally, he's like right up there. Oh, there he is. There's his little ears. See him? Oh shit, he's always hiding. Moki, Moki, Moki! He's hiding from you, tubies. I see that little ear. Alright, we'll end that there.